Hello, I'm Jay. If I asked you as a guitarist to play me a C minor 7 arpeggio in every position on the fretboard, or if I asked you to play me Happy Birthday in E flat, or if I gave you a simple melody and asked you to harmonise it at sight, would you be able to do these things? My guess is the average player watching this video wouldn't, and yet these are all things that the average pianist could do easily. If you can't do these things, it's because you don't have a solid musical foundation. I'm going to outline a 12-step process here that would build that solid foundation, which is so often missing in guitarists. So, while this is a method ideally for serious beginners, it's perhaps going to be more useful to more advanced players who feel they might have gaps in their abilities and knowledge. So if you are a more advanced player, test yourself. If you can do every step I outline here, then you have a solid foundation. If you can't, then you have obvious gaps, but they can easily be filled by doing the things I'm going to suggest here. These 12 steps are focused on learning the building blocks of music rather than learning to play the guitar, in a manner much more like how most other instrumentalists learn to play. I've always thought that pianists, keyboard players in general, are more accomplished, superior musicians than guitarists. This is something I spoke about in a previous video called Why the Average Guitarist is Not as Good as the Average Pianist, something like that. I will put a link to it below. If you want more details on my thinking, then please watch that. I concluded that this was because guitarists learn the guitar, they don't learn music, by which I meant that guitarists don't learn to play in a musically logical manner. They just dive in and they learn to do what the guitar is particularly good at doing, or what it does a lot of, rather than start with the basics of understanding and playing music. So, in this video, I'm going to outline 12 individual steps here, and I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail with each one. So let me say now, to really build the solid foundation I'm talking about, each of these steps should have weeks spent on. You should learn what every step looks like written down, learn the names of the notes, learn the interval names, learn to recognize them orally, improvise with them, incorporate learning progressive rhythms with each step. Ideally, there would be a book with exercises and melodies to play every step of the way. However, this video would be hours long if we did that here, but it is vital. It's no good just practicing each step for 5 minutes and saying, right, I can do that, let's move on. So with that in mind, here we go. The first 4 steps, the most fundamental of all. Step 1. The note of C. Everywhere you can find it on the fretboard, every octave. There's a C, there's a C, there's a C. So that's step 1, simple as that. Step 2, C to C sharp and C to D. Everywhere on the fretboard, learning about tones and semitones. Learn to recognize them orally. Step 3, the major scale, the C major scale on one string, noting the tones and semitones, which you just learnt about. So you start on a C. Off every C. By doing it on one string, it is clear where the tones and semitones are, and you can make more musical sense of it as a beginner in your head and understand the C major scale or the major scale in general in a much clearer manner. Step 4, the C major scale in one position, using the 2-4, 1-2-4, 1-3-4 pattern. Off every note of C on the neck. That's the first 4 steps, right? So note of C everywhere, C to C sharp, C to D, tones and semitones, C major scale on one string, and then C major scale in position. All of these off every C on the fretboard. Now, just after 4 steps, you know your C major scale everywhere on the fretboard, and by definition, you have learnt all the natural notes all over the fretboard. Assuming you've been learning the names of the notes and the interval names as we go, as I said at the start. Steps 5 and 6. Now, each of these would learn the 4 basic arpeggio types. Step 5, C major arpeggio using the 2-1-4 pattern. Off every C. Then step 3, learn the other 3 basic types of arpeggio, minor, diminished and augmented. Again, off every C. So there's your major, augmented, minor, diminished. The simplest way to do these, the most logical way I always think for going through your triads, is augmented, major, minor, diminished. Augmented, major, minor, diminished. Off every C on the fretboard. Steps 7 and 8 do the same things as chords, triads. So C major root position triad. That's playing all the 3 notes of the arpeggio you've done in the previous steps, but now at the same time, creating a triad. And then again, the step 8, learn the other 3 types of triad, minor, diminished and augmented. So let's see, you've got your major, there'll be your augmented, your minor, your diminished. Off every C on the fretboard. At this point, you will now know a C major scale, a C major, C minor, C diminished and C augmented triad, a C major, C minor, C diminished and C augmented arpeggio, all of which you could play anywhere on the neck off every C on the fretboard. The last 4 steps, steps 9 and 10, would harmonise the C major scale with our newly learnt chord and arpeggio shapes, but with the scale on 1 string, like we did earlier, to make sense of it more and see kind of how it all works. So step 9, harmonise a complete C major scale with root position triads, doing this with the root notes all on 1 string. So C, this is with the root note on the A string, there's our C, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, C. On each string. You could only do this with the root note on the E, A, D or G string, because you can't play a triad with the root note on the B string because we've only got 2 strings there. And step 10, do the same thing but with arpeggio patterns. So again, root notes all on 1 string, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. The final 2 steps would be to do what we've just done with C major but in 1 position. So with the C major scale in 1 position, so harmonise the complete scale with root position triads using the roots in our 1 octave scale shape, no longer on 1 string. So if we have to start here, the root note on the bottom E string, C major, D minor, our E is there now, so we go with the E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished and C. And step 12, play the 2-string arpeggio pattern that we've learnt on all notes of the scale using the root notes in the 1 octave shape. So like we did on 1 string, but now using the notes in our 1 octave pattern. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major. You get the idea. And that's it. So a 12-step process that will get you to the point where you would know where all the natural notes are all over the neck, can play a C major scale all over the neck, all the basic chords in the key of C as root position triads all over the neck, and all the basic arpeggios in the key of C all over the neck. Now, although I wasn't going into it when outlining these steps, as I said at the start, you should also have learned how to read all of these, be able to work out melodies, understand and orally recognize the intervals, triads, arpeggios, have learnt about rhythm, etc., made music with every step of the way. Now, while this may seem like a lot and may even seem quite complicated to many, it's no more than any good piano student can do within a few months of learning to play. Yes, we have the understanding of the fretboard to deal with and notes in multiple positions, but it's got to be done. If you want to learn your instrument and master it and be a solid musician, it's got to be done. And the notes in multiple positions, in the end, you will see it as a huge advantage rather than a disadvantage. Of course, there's much more to learn and much more to this, much more to making a great musician. What I've outlined here is just a basic foundation, but it's a solid foundation, and it's one which is missing from so many guitarists. And once more, if you think this is too extreme, remember, this is no more than any good piano student could do within the first year or two of learning. Thank you for watching. I hope you found some of this useful, or at least it's given you something to think about. I'm Jay. Please like me. Subscribe, it's free, and it makes me feel all warm and cozy inside. Too much?